Hello friends, I'm beginning a new art tutorial today. I'm going to be painting from another photograph, and before I begin I usually like to cover up my white canvas. And in this case, because I want the glow of the morning sunrise to ultimately come through my painting, I have decided on this gold background, which is somewhat yellow ochre. But I went to the Great Smoky Mountains last June with my family, and although I don't typically get to see the sunrise because I'm not an early riser, in this particular day I was awake and realized the sun was coming up, so I ran out with my camera. And one of the photographs that I took was particularly amusing to me, so I'm going to try to capture it on this canvas in paint. So I hope you will come along with me. And here is my photograph, and as I paint, I'll be making adjustments in the composition as need be. But the highlight of this painting is going to be the sun, which is actually rising right in this area, but it looked to me more like a sunset than a sunrise. So who knows how it's going to actually end up, but I will be highlighting this area a little more with the glow of the morning sun. So join me, and thanks for watching. Okay, to get started, I'm going to be using colors in my normal or regular palette, and you'll notice I have a variety of brands, but I don't really specify any particular brand at this point. But I've been painting 40 years, so over time I've acquired different brands. That's the reason for these. The brands that I typically recommend for my students is the Winsor & Newton Winton, because these are student grade and tend to be less expensive. So for someone starting out, they are quite sufficient. But I'm still using mine until I run out, then I'll buy something a little better grade. But I also have the Liquitex, some Grumbacher, and these are the colors that I'll be using. This is burnt sienna, which is one of my favorite colors. Cobalt blue is the color I typically use for skies. Then I have, and this is a new acquisition, I'm not sure yet how I like it, brilliant blue, purple, cobalt blue. And this is Prussian blue, one of my standards. This is alizarin crimson, sap green, viridian green, cadmium yellow light, and cadmium yellow medium. I also sometimes use Payne's gray to mix my greens. And in the case of this painting, my greens are going to be very dark because they're pretty much in shadow. But I'll be adjusting them so that you can at least see the foreground in the photograph. Now I am going to be using, and I really love these brushes because they're soft, and for the kinds of blending that I'm going to be doing, they'll work very nicely. And they come in a package very reasonably priced. This is a number 20, and this is a 22. This is a filbert brush, and this is just a flat synthetic. Both of these are synthetic, and these are made by Royal and Langnickel, and they work for me. In terms of brushes, I think that whatever works for you is what you ought to get, and I'm in favor of using old brushes if that's what I need to get a particular stroke in my painting. Some of the best brushes I have are white bristle brushes that have gotten really old, and they've gotten the paint down in the ferrule, which is this area, and it causes them to spread out they make great foliage on trees and little specks of rocks and so forth. So don't be too quick to throw them away. I use Liquin for my medium to thin my paints. It also allows them to dry more quickly. So that's another thing. I use odorless turpentine to clean my brushes, and I always keep plenty of rags and paper towels nearby so that I can make this all happen. I also use a palette knife for my initial blending, and a trusty pair of pliers is a necessity, especially when your paint tubes get old, so keep those around as well. And I'll be sharing some things that as I'm changing them in the course of this painting. So stay with me and let's get started. In this first layer of paint, I'm using titanium white, cobalt blue, a touch of Prussian blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson to create my gray. I'm using the filbert brush on the sky because it works better for blending, and I'll be doing a lot of blending, and in fact, I'll be doing a lot of what I'm going to call caressing on this particular painting anyway, because the blending is necessary, and in some respects I am barely touching the canvas as I glide somewhat across the canvas. There's a point I wanted to make here, in addition to the fact that the lighting is terrible because I have daylight coming in on the left side, and I just wasn't paying attention to the change in the light as I was painting. But it does get a little bit better in time. But I wanted to mention here that this is a gallery wrapped canvas, which means that the canvas is wrapped all the way around the frame so that you can actually hang it without putting a frame on it. And as you may know already, the frame is sometimes the most expensive part about a painting. And so I love gallery wrapped canvases. But make sure that when you are using these, that you paint all the way around the edge so that you don't have to worry about matching paint when you're finished with your painting. Sometimes that's difficult. So just make sure that you go around the frame as you're painting on the top. It's always a good idea to test your colors before you mix a lot of it. I hate waste personally, so I make a lot of changes until I get to the point where I'm satisfied with the color mixture that I have chosen. Many times, as you will see in this video, I do a lot of mixing right on my canvas. If I get a color that's too dark, I sometimes will lighten it right on the canvas. My challenge for this section of the painting is going to be making some distinction between the distance of the trees and my need to have a little more detail, because my photograph, of course, because it's early morning and it's sunrise and the sun has not come up enough to give any detail to my mountains below. So it's going to be a challenge to make these recede into the background while at the same time creating enough distinction between the more distant trees and the ones that are closer to me. So that's going to be the challenge. And also I have the clouds, which are forming some shadows in addition to that. So I'm really aiming in this painting to make it as realistic as possible in terms of creating distance, and then just doing what I think is a beautiful painting. So we shall all see together. I'll be surprised to see how it turns out. But in the meantime, I have a lot of brush strokes to apply to this painting. So hang in there with me and we'll see where it goes. I did want to also mention that in the video, because of the lighting from overhead and the use of liquid, which is a glossy medium, I'm having some issues with the lighting reflecting off of the paint. So I'm going to be taking care of that as time goes on. But this is a learning experience for me, and I hope it will be for you as well. Every painting I do teaches me something, and I look forward to see what those lessons are going to be in this painting. You may have noticed that there's some time between the last few frames and this one. I did have to take some time off from this painting, but my aim in today's work is to clarify my clouds. I'll continue to add color and blend, and in some cases remove paint. It's always good to test the color that you like before you put it on your canvas. Sometimes you can't tell until you do, and what's happening right now on this canvas is a good example of that. But I do eventually either remove it or paint over it, as you see here. But the main thing is to keep working and keep blending. This sky is a lot more complicated than some of the skies that I paint, so it makes it a little more tedious, I think, to get something that I like. Now, I am on one level using my photograph to design the clouds, but as with every painting, it's up to me what I want to do. So I'm continually working, thinking, and reworking these areas. In some cases, I'm putting paint thick on areas. In other places, I am spreading it. I am blending it with other colors. In some cases, I'm just removing it altogether. But that's part of the process for me. And at some point, when I come back to the painting, I can look at it with fresh eyes. And at this point, I can see that my skies are really too complicated, and I will be trying to smooth them out. And one of the ways that I do that while the paint is still wet in areas is to take my brush and apply some pressure and do what I would call dry brush blending, so that I get a little more natural look. So it's all a process, and as you are watching, I hope that you are gaining some information and perhaps learning things even from my mistakes. One of the things that I've learned recently is that I'm going to change all of my tubes of paint to more quality paint. The student grade that I've been using, simply because I have my students by the student grade, is that it's just not as satisfactory. So I'm slowly but surely replacing all of my paint, and some of it is probably 35 years old, so it's time to change that. But welcome to my studio, and I will be back intermittently to discuss what it is I'm doing. The difficulty in this portion of the painting is trying to maintain distance at the same time not getting it so dark that it loses all of its detail. The distant mountains and trees have to be gray so that they will recede into the background, but I want to maintain some detail because the painting was just too dark otherwise. And in the photograph, because the photograph is dark, it's difficult to see what's going on down below, and that, after all, is at least half of this scene, so I want to maintain some light and details that are not in the photograph. But it's my painting, and in the long run, I can do what I like, and so can you in your paintings. One of the problems that I deal with in painting landscapes especially is graying my background so that it looks like background, and so that's a problem I'm working with in this painting for sure, because those mountains must recede, and I'm going to keep working at them until I get them right. I am determined. So as I'm working on it, I'm realizing my mistakes as I go along, and then I come back and try to correct them. So I hope you're learning something from this video. You just make it work the way you want it to work, and whatever looks good, then just do it. It's your painting. As I've said before, this is my painting, and if I want them to be mountains, they'll be. Now, the area in green, I'm going to continue to work on it, or that area, because of the fact that the green is actually too green. Hello friends, I'm interrupting this videotape to talk a little bit about what's been going on. If you've made it this far into the videotape, then I applaud you and tell you how much I appreciate your hanging in there with me. I am not a professional videotaper. I will mention that I am a photographer, through most of this painting, but that's a whole different ball game from videotaping. I'm finding out. So I've had a lot of issues to deal with in the last year and a half that I've been making these tutorials, which actually is a misnomer, because this is a demonstration, not a tutorial. If it were a tutorial, I would be doing a lot better job at teaching along the way. But if you enjoy watching videotapes, you enjoy watching someone paint, as I do. I watch a lot of videotapes of people painting and doing many other things, but what I want to share with you today is that I am sorry about lighting issues, and I'm working on them constantly. some of the first videotapes I made are bad in many situations, but hopefully my paintings are good, because that's what I'm about here, is painting. And if you are a painter, especially if you're new at it, or if you're a Sunday painter, I would recommend that you try doing some videotapes of yourself painting. I've learned a lot watching myself paint, and I take the disc back and forth to my computer and I look at them. I get an opportunity to check the lighting, to check my progress in the painting. Sometimes I see things in the videotape that I can't see on my canvas. So I hope, if nothing else, you have learned something about painting and about the art of being a painter. So please hang in there with me, and I'm sure there will be more videotapes. Some of them very good, some of them not so good, but all of them are coming from the heart of an artist who really wants to teach and to demonstrate. So have a great day and keep watching. I'm going to be finishing up the foreground in the next few sessions, and then I'm going to go back and do final touches on the sky. So be blessed today, and we'll touch base again soon. Of the cabin overlooking these trees, and these trees are very close to me. I don't want them to be so bright they'll jump out, because it is just the beginning of the sunrise, so they're not exceptionally bright, but for the composition I want them to appear to be closer. So I'm going to keep on working with that. I've also noticed from looking at this painting that this tree is slanted slightly to the left, and what it's doing right now, because of the slant, is that it's taking the eye out of the painting, and I'm going to have to give it another limb here to at least keep it in the painting, even if it doesn't curve very much. But again, it's my painting. As soon as it looks like I want it to look, that's when I'll call it finished. But for right now, I'm satisfied with the way it's going. I have greened this a little bit more, and I'm going to wait until it dries before I'm satisfied that it's the right tone. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep on working here. As you may have figured out by now, if you've been watching this video very long, that I'm going to be doing a lot of just picking around on this, and for the most part I'm calling this done. When the paint is dry, I will probably go back and pick at it some more, especially in the foreground where the paint is drying a lot darker than I intend for it to. But this is the nature of painting, and I could have stopped it a long time ago and called it finished, but I'm going to keep working at it. But I hope you've enjoyed watching and hope you've learned something. I will be posting the finished painting, the signed and finished painting, shortly. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and especially subscribe to my channel. Thank you.